Welcome. Today is the third day we are continuing on time management, and again hopefully we would like to complete it. I gave you a problem to solve, a networking problem. So this was the networking problem, and I hope you have done something about it, but I will try to do it right in front of you. I have not done it earlier, but I am trying to do it right in front of you. So I have got E, B and A, B and E. So this could be my A, this could be my B, and this could be my E. Right. Then after A, I have C, B, I have D, and after D, I have G, A, C, I have F, after F, I have J, then M, after G, I have P, and Q, after P, I have R, Q, S, G, I have H, K, L, N. Okay. E. Okay. Does your diagram look something like this? Yes, Mohsen.
A little bit messy than this, but almost the same. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's almost the same. But yeah,
Right.
not that aligned.
So if you can do it this much job, then you have done the network sequence. Now we take this sequence on, naturally we estimate our duration, we estimate our resources, and after having collected all this data, we go to develop schedule process, and there we put this data into this network diagram. And once we do that, then we will have, just a minute. Okay. A is 3, B is 6, C is 2, D is 9, E is 10, F is 8, G is 5, H is 7, J is 2, K is 12, L is 5, M is 8, N is 15, P is 1, Q is 9, R is 2, and S is 6. So naturally you can do the calculations, but I'll ask you to do something else. Can you tell me how many paths are there which are leading from start to end? Starting from the top. Yes. Okay. If I start from the starting point, I can go on the top path E. Just keep writing down these paths. E, F, J, M. E, F, J, M is one path. E, F, J, M. Okay. Then we can go on A, C, F, J, M. A, C, F, J, M. This one. Then we can go on this path B, D, G, P, R. B, D, G, P, R. Let us go on the next path B, D, G, P, Q, S. B, D, G, P, Q, S. And our last path is B, D, G, H, K, L, N. B, D, G, H, K, L, N. So Rijo asked a question, why don't we move on the fastest path? Let us see which is the shortest and which is the longest path. I am not going into the full calculations as we studied yesterday. Sorry, are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello, Mohsin, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Now it's okay.
Okay, fine. So I was saying, let us find out all the paths. Did you write these paths down? E, F, J, M. This is one from start to finish. A, C, F, J, M. B, A, B, D, G, E, R. Then B, D, G, P, Q, S. And then B, D, G, H, K, L, N. So let us calculate the duration of each path. E, F, J, M is 28 days long. 10 plus 8 plus 2 plus 8, right? ACF JM is 23 days long. 3 plus 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 8. BDG PR, that is 23 again. And BDG PQS 36. BDG PQS 10, 16, 21, 36. Right, is it 36? Then BDG HKLN. BDG HKLN. That is 59. Am I correct? So we have, in this case, in this network, we have 5 paths, and the lowest path is the longest one. Let me change the color of the pen and right. So we have I can't type here as well. Right. So probably I can write here. I can share this one to you. What can you see?
Excel, sir. Excel.
Actually, okay. We have the path E, F, J, M as 28 days. We have A, C, F, J, M as 23 days. We have A, C, sorry, B, D, G, P, R, which is 23 days. A, B, D, sorry. Then we have B, D, G, P, Q, S, which is 36, which is yeah, H, K, L, N. So apparently we have got a winner. The lowest path is the longest path, right? Let me copy it to our just hold on a minute. There is something wrong with. Right. Today is again a bad day because our recording is continuously being interrupted by the internet or something like that. Anyways, I was talking about the estimate activity resources. We talked about the inputs. We said that there's a scheduled management plan required. Naturally, that is the management plan which we are following, and we'll seek guidance about this process from there. That provides us the guidelines on that. Then activity list and attribute are coming from define activities process, and that was when we defined the activities. We had three things coming out of it: activity list, activity attribute, and milestone list. Milestone list is not required here. Milestone list was required by the sequence activities process, so it was not to be communicated anywhere else. So activity list and activity attributes we get from there. Then we have the resource calendars, that is the availability of the resources, when and where a resource can be made available. So according to this calendar, I will assign the resources. Then we have the risk registers. With risks, there might be certain risks to the resources. Maybe a resource cannot be made available due to certain risks. I must consult the risk register and see whether my calculations of the activity resources are impacted by that. Cost estimates can restrict me by providing an upper limit of spending in a period, and I cannot employ more than those people because of the limitation of the funding. So I must consider that as well. And enterprise factors and process assets will be there. Then as far as the tools and techniques are concerned, we have the expert judgment, which is not only the project manager, but his team as well as other experts he may consult with. Alternative analysis how means how from where would you get these resources? Are they your in-house inbuilt resources? Are you are hiring new people? Are you are outsourcing this job to some other department or some other organization or a contractor? So whatever options available to you are, these are your alternatives analysis. And then you go over to the published estimating data, which is created by volunteer bodies or other professional bodies who have done similar kind of job. So you would know what is a capacity or capability of a person, how much that person can do. So if there is a mason, what is expected of a mason to be accomplishing in a specific period of time. Maybe you can say that a mason can build a wall of 2 feet in 1 hour or whatever. These kind of estimating data are made available by the volunteer bodies like Pakistan Engineering Council, IEEE, Computer Society of Pakistan, and there are lot many bodies, and they do publish certain kind of data, and that can be very useful in estimating the resources. Then is the bottom-up estimation. Once we have assigned the resources to each and every activity, we can sum up all the resources and find the total resources for the whole project. So project management software like MS Project, Primavera can also help us estimate. Why? Because it is just like an Excel sheet. You can provide all these parameters in the software, and then you can ask it to calculate it for you. You can give it the requirement that we need 2 masons, and if in the resource pool of that software there are masons available, that will assign them. Otherwise, that would say that resources are not available. So it is exactly the same thing. The resource calendar actually has to be built into the software, and then you assign the resources to your activity, and once you are trying to assign these resources, the software will tell you whether this resource is available or not. And if it is not available, then you have to make it available from other alternatives. Anyways, by making use of these tools and techniques, you will ultimately be able to determine the activity resource requirements, and a resource breakdown structure can be created. What is a resource breakdown structure? This is just like, just like the work breakdown structure you have already studied, or you have talked about. Uh, that is a hierarchical structure which divides the things further and further as if you go down. It could be like an organization structure, it could be like a WBS, but the resource breakdown structure is kind of an inventory. Like the top says all the resources for the project.
Uh, Excuse me, sir. Sir, the slide is not visible.
Not visible at all.
I think it's stuck. I see the.
Okay, what can you see?
Uh,
I am on estimate activity resource table. Can you see that now? Okay, can you see that now? अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी। सर जी मैं सुहेल इकबाल बोल रहा हूँ। SysCompPK.com is my. I'm sorry जी, there was some problem and it is still there. I've launched a complaint with them, but I don't know what they are going to be really doing about it. Anyways, I'll get back to where we were. Okay. Welcome, Asad. Nice to see you. Right. So I did talk about, yes, I did talk about the estimate activity resources. Can you see the screen now? No problem. Okay, screen is visible, right? Very good. So what I was saying was that activity resource, estimate activity resource, we did talk about the inputs and tools and techniques, and I was explaining the resource breakdown structure. Resource breakdown structure is just like a organizational structure, या organizational breakdown structure, or a work breakdown structure, a hierarchical structure which keeps breaking down to lower levels. If we talk about resource breakdown structure, I would rather like to equate it to an inventory. If you are in an inventory, you say that this is a store of tools. So the top level is tools, store of tools. And then you have got what kind of tools in there? You have got 10 different kinds of tools in there. So you will have 10 branches coming out of the store, the 10 different types of tools. Then each tool may have different specifications. So you may have hammers of 7 different sizes. So those hammers would come under the hammer category, and then each hammer category will subcategory will can further even be subdivided. Similarly, if I can have a resource breakdown structure which says resources for this project, and then it says human resources, tools, equipment, vehicles, and all that. So these could be the subcategories of the main project. All the resources of the project are divided into these 4, 5, or 6 categories. Then under human resources, I can have the carpenters and masons and this and that. And under the masons, we can have the expert masons, the novice masons, the intermediate type masons, and then in novice, we further can have the names of the people who are there. So it is kind of a complete inventory of all the resources, which could be drawn in shape of a breakdown structure. So this is resource breakdown structure, and once we have identified all the resources, we could allocate them accordingly on our resource breakdown structure, and ultimately the project documents could also be updated. This is the diagram for all the interactions with the estimate resource activity resources, and you see all the inputs we have talked about. There were a number of inputs. Cost estimate was coming from estimate cost, and identify risk was giving us the risk register. Resource calendar is coming from acquired team and conduct procurements. Organization is giving us the organization processes and enterprise environmental factors. Plan schedule is giving the schedule management plan, and define activities giving us two things, activity list and attributes. These are all the inputs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the outputs are project resource requirements and resource breakdown structure and the project document update. Resource requirements are not only required by the subsequent process of duration estimate and develop schedule, but it is also required for planning the human resources. Resource breakdown structure is required by a duration estimate and develop schedule, whereas project documents are being archived, and also a copy of that is required by the procurement management. So this diagram lays out how from where, what is coming from where and what is going where. So this is just a further description of all these items. We already have talked about it and we don't have much of doubt. Next process is activity durations to be estimated. Here we assign the work periods or time durations to each activity, how much time each activity will take. And naturally, we do have an estimate of the resources already. We have asked for an expert mason to be placed on this job. So if an expert mason comes in for this job, how much time will this job take? So we can easily calculate the work periods based on the assumption of the resources. But if the resource we asked for, we don't get that, we get a novice mason, then probably the work period is going to change accordingly. Key benefit of this process is that it provides the amount of time each activity will take to complete, which is a major input into the develop schedule process. So we cannot develop the schedule unless we do know the duration. We already have a sequence diagram ready. You have made it yourself, but duration is to be provided, and if we cannot provide the duration, we cannot find the total duration of the project, and nor can we establish the critical path and floats and all that. So Gantt chart cannot be created until and unless we have this. Okay. But you can hear me, huh? Okay. So I am on the table where estimate activity durations is shown. Again, a very huge table and lot many things in the input. But if you look at it closely, you will find it is not that very difficult kind of a scenario. These so many things listed here are actually coming from the sources we already know. You understand from where the schedule management plan is coming. That is the plan which is providing us the guideline for doing this activity. Like we want to estimate the duration of the activities, schedule management plan provided the guidance for that. We have the activity list and activity attributes coming from where? From the define activities process. We have the resource requirements and resource calendars. This we have just calculated in the previous activity process where it was a resource activity resources were being estimated. So that estimate we are going to use here for calculation of durations. Resource calendars, as the resources become available, their calendar becomes available to us. We understand and know when and where a certain resource will become available to us, and we plan accordingly. Scope statement must be in front of me as if I can comply with the scope. Risk registers I must consider. Risk breakdown structure is the inventory I have. Therefore, risk breakdown structure is a very important tool here. Then enterprise environmental factors and process assets will be the traditional input. Now look at these tools. These are a number of tools listed here, tools and techniques for estimating the activity durations. Number one is expert judgment. Naturally, the opinion of the experts will matter in ascertaining how much time a duration, how much time an activity is going to take. But then there are certain estimating tools like analogous, parametric estimating, 3-point estimate. Analogous estimating is when we are creating an analogy with a previous past event. We say, I have done a similar kind of activity in another project, and when I was doing that, I can say from experience that that job was done in 3 days. And this job is very similar to that, and therefore it may also take 3 days. This I am creating an analogy. So what I have done is I have taken the analogy of a uh, previous activity, and I have used exactly the same duration as we used earlier. But this is not necessary that analogy is always equal in duration. It can be the previous job I had done earlier was smaller in scope and it took 3 days. So in proportion to that, this job may take 7 days. So proportionately, you could increase or decrease the duration based on the analogy of a previous event. This is called analogous estimating. I hope you understand what I mean by analogous. Yes, Mohsin? Are you okay with analogous? Okay. Now, what is parametric estimating? This is again very interesting. I said one man can do this much job in a day. How many days will be required to complete this job? That is, I have established a parameter that one man can do only this much job in a day, right? So, if there is only one man available to me, how many days will it take to complete this job? Or for that matter, in software, they say they have parameters defined, like you see, a software developer can write 200 lines of code per hour. A software engineer can write 200 lines of code per hour. So can you estimate the duration for writing 20,000 lines of code? Of course, if I am given this parameter, I can simply calculate the duration of that activity based on that parameter. Is it okay? I hope these are very simple examples and you would be able to relate to them. Fine. 3-point estimate. Anyone having any idea what 3-point estimate is? Okay. 3-point estimate is something where you are not certain how much time this activity will take. Although you might have a lot of historical data, maybe hundreds of examples where a similar job was done, but the result of the data coming from them is very diverse in nature. The similar job someone has done in 2 days, someone has done in 10 days, someone has done in 3 days, someone has done in 4 days. So there is a lot of diversity in data. How do you determine out of such diverse data how much time should you give to this activity? So normally people, what they do is either they go for the lowest figure if they are they want to do the project very fast. So just based on the assumption that we will be working faster, so they will take the minimum time ever taken by anyone. But you see, there is a lot of risk because many people have not been able to do it in that small little duration. So probably you are at more risk of not accomplishing your job in that duration. So those people who are extra cautious, they take the maximum time which anyone has ever taken before. So if somebody has done the similar job in 10 days, that is the maximum time, I would take 10 days. So in this, you are actually blocking the way of opportunity. If this job could have been done earlier than 10 days, you have not considered that and you have assigned 10 days to this job. So this job will never be done before 10 days now. So it is very difficult to determine what duration should be fixed for such an activity. Moreover, this method is also used when you don't have any data. So what you do is you go around surveying people and asking them questions like, if you do this job, how much time will you take? And you collect all this data. And naturally, if you collect this data from so many people, there will be a lot of diversity, and you have got, as many answers as the people you have surveyed. So you can make use of statistics here in determining the most suitable time which you can allocate to your activity. So what we do is, in this, this is generally found in statistics, that most of the people, if you get a sample data from 100 different people, most of the people will have almost a similar opinion. This activity, probably they are suggesting, most of the people are suggesting 2 days, 3 days or 4 days, right? But there is one person who is a pessimist, and he says this is impossible that this job can be done before 10 days. And there is an optimist who says, I have done this similar job, it just takes 1 day. So whom should I listen? Again the same scenario. Whom should I listen? So we must not forget about the optimist and the pessimist, because these are the people who are showing us the two extremes. The optimist might be the person who might have been very lucky and all the opportunities came his way when he was trying to do a similar job. And this is an example that we can also get those kind of opportunities. It is a maybe kind of a situation. Maybe we are that lucky that we um, face the similar environment as the optimist has faced. Or it is equally possible that we can have the luck of the pessimist and all the bad things happen to us and we cannot complete the project before the activity before the 10 days. But most of the people carry more weight. So if I take an average of most of the people, that comes out to be, maybe they are saying 2, 3, 4. So probably it is something like 3. So I have 3 figures, 3 points: one optimistic view, one pessimistic view, and one an average view, which is coming from most of the people. So I apply statistics on these 3 figures and I take a weighted average. I don't take a simple average, because if I take a simple average of these three figures, then the opinion of the most likely people, of the most of the people, would take the same value as that of the optimist or pessimist. But I know and I understand that most of the people carry more weightage. So I have to take a weighted average, giving more weightage to the opinion of most of the people and less weightage to the optimist and pessimist. But at the same time, I have already said that we cannot ignore the optimist and the pessimist. Therefore, we have to give them some weightage. So from statistical point of view, it says give one time weightage to the optimist, one time weightage to the pessimist, and 4 time weightage to the most likely value. So if I take a weighted average, the formula would be my estimate is equal to 1 weight of pessimist plus 4 times the weight of the most likely plus 1 time the pessimist, whole divided by how much? There are how many values? How many weightages? Yes, please. No, not 4. We have 4 times weightage to the most likely, 1 time weightage to the pessimist, and 1 time weightage to the optimist. There are a total of 6 weightages. 6 weightages. 3 is for average. Mohsin, 3 is for average. If we give equal weightage to all 3, then 3 we divide it by 3. That is a simple average. But I am saying give 4 times more weightage to the middle value. So for all practical purposes, we have given 4 weights to the middle, 1 weight to the pessimist, 1 weight to the optimist. This comes out to be 6 weights. So divide this whole thing by 6. That will give me an estimate, a weighted estimate of the activity. We will, I'll show this to you in a little more detail later, but this is generally the formula. Asad, are you getting me? Is it okay with you? Right. Very good. Then we have yet another technique that is called group decision making technique. Naturally, once we are making such kind of decisions, then we must have whatever the team, the project management team is sitting and deciding on these things, must have a mechanism of reaching proper decisions, group decisions. Our group decisions must be more sane and must have a higher IQ. We should not compromise. We should be able to choose the best decision. So we must apply group decision making techniques as if we can reach the best of the best decisions. And one more thing, and that is the reserve analysis. Whatever you calculate, for every activity, you determine how much reserve is to be kept in that activity as far as duration is concerned. If you want to add something, you have to provide a justification. Why are you keeping this much reserve in this activity? And that is called reserve analysis. If you add time to an activity without any justification, that is called padding, and padding is not allowed. Rather, padding is criminal. You see, I have seen in many organizations, it is a normal habit that they senselessly calculate the durations of their activities without any parameters. Like, once I was teaching organization and quality, and I told them uh, various software estimation methods. One of them was a COCOMO model. COCOMO model. I asked them to apply that and calculate how much time it will take to do this work, and I received some very strange figures which were extremely high. I asked them, how did you calculate it? They said, we just calculated as you told, and after we had calculated our figures, we simply multiplied it by 4. I said, why? They said, this is how we do in our organization. This is a standing instruction that every calculation is to be multiplied by 4. What is the justification for that? This is not a reserve. This is something you are putting in without any justification. You must keep reserve, yes, of course, but then you must have a justification. And reserve, the value of reserve cannot be static for all activities. In some activities, you will require 5% reserve, in some activities 10% reserve, and in some activities no reserve at all. And even in some activities, you may even have to have 100 or 200% reserve. So this all depends upon the activity. And the matter how this reserve can be kept, I simply say that if there is a chair, how much reserve will you keep for the chair? If you say 10%, that is simply not possible. Do you want a 10% chair or a small little bit, 10 times smaller chair? No, that will not serve the purpose. You just want the seat of the chair? No, that will also not serve the purpose. So, if a chair is that important that I must have it in any condition, so I may need to have 100% reserve of the chair. I may buy 2 chairs, one in reserve and one for use. And if this one is broken, then I can take on the second chair, I can use it if that is so important. If I can work standing, that is no problem. While the new chair is coming or is being repaired, then I don't need 100% reserve. On the other hand, there are certain things which can be, broken down into small parts. Like you see, I have, you know, uh, s- uh, 2 kilos of sand. So it is very easy that I can have 10% more. If it is granular, if this item is small, then I can always break it. So as far as durations are concerned, this is very easy to put some percentage, but that percentage of duration you are adding as reserve, you must have a proper justification for that. Do I make my point? Right. So as a result, you will have the activity duration estimates and your project documents will be updated in that light. So the next diagram simply shows the enormous number of inputs coming to you. Don't be afraid of it. Don't, really be, this is not, they look like there are many things, but they are very logical. You need to have risk register, you need to have scope statement, you need to have resource calendar, enterprise non-key factors, process assets, schedule management plan, activity list, activity attribute, activity resource requirements, activity resource breakdown structure. You know, they may look many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 items getting into it as an input. This is a huge figure, but you don't have to learn them by heart. You have to understand the logic from where these things are coming and why are these things coming. The duration estimate is only to be required by the developed schedule. It is not to be shared with resource estimation. It is not to be shared with sequencing. No one requires it. But this estimation goes direct to developed schedule. Developed schedule is the process where everything, all of the project data is put together. Therefore, duration estimate is going there, resource estimate is going there, the network diagram is going there, the activity list, activity attributes are going there, and then that is the point where everything is going to be put together. So these are just the details of all the items I have just discussed, and the formula I just discussed, if you can see this slide 6.5.2.4, 3-point estimate. You can read this carefully. This explains what I said, right? Here you can note, can you see it? Can you see the slide of 3-point estimate? Okay. You see, it explains what is most likely, what is optimistic, what is pessimistic. This has given some codes to them. TM for most likely, TO for optimistic, TP for pessimistic. You can have any codes like that. And to calculate the duration for your project, uh, there could be two methods. One is a triangular distribution, another is a beta distribution. Triangular distribution means that the data you have is not very much. You just have data from few sources, 4, 5, 10 sources. So if the number of sources are too less, then you can simply take an average of 3 values, as in a normal case. But if you have ample data, like 100 sources are there and you have accumulated all this data, then you should give more weightage to the most likely value. And most likely value will get a 4 times weightage. And then the formula will be TE is equal to optimistic plus 4 times the most likely plus the pessimistic whole divided by 6. This is called beta distribution. So you have to decide whether you are using the triangular distribution or the beta distribution. Triangular distribution is a simple average. Beta distribution is the weighted average. Good. Okay, then is the develop schedule. This is the most important process because all what we have done in time management is to be put together in this process, develop schedule. And this is a very laborious process because it just does not have to do a small little job. It will have to iterate it until it is refined to the level that it can be baseline. Remember, develop schedule is the last planning process in time management knowledge area. So because it is the last one and it is one of the baselines we are going to create, the schedule baseline is going to be created out of it. So we have to be extremely very careful that this baseline is the absolute baseline. And impact of all other knowledge areas have to be considered before creating this baseline, because a lot many things will keep changing our schedule, and our schedule whatever will emerge in the in the first moment uh, would be just a model, and that model will constantly change by other factors from other knowledge areas due to other knowledge areas, and ultimately when we are satisfied that there is no more change and this is the final version, then we will baseline it. The interim versions would be called the schedule instances, as we studied earlier. So developed schedule is the process of analyzing the activity sequences, the durations, the resources, and the schedule constraints we already have calculated. And why are we doing that? We are putting it all together into a schedule model. First time we are filling this balloon with the data of durations, sequences, activities and resources and everything, and this will for the very first time take a shape of a bar chart or a Gantt chart. The first shape is called the schedule model, and all subsequent changes to it before we baseline it are called schedule instances, and the final version which we establish and decide and get it approved from our sponsor is called the schedule baseline. The key benefit of this process is that by entering all this data into the scheduling tool, it generates a schedule model with planned dates for completing the project activities. So again, we have even more processes, even more inputs into this process. There are 13 inputs. Why? Very simple, because all of the processes we have studied earlier in time management are contributing whatever they produce to this process, because it has to put it all together. So we need schedule management plan, we need activity list and activity attributes from defined activities, we need schedule network diagram which we created in sequence activities, we need the resource requirements and resource calendar from the estimate activity resources process, and then we need the activity duration estimates from the previous process duration estimates. In addition to that, we need the scope statement, we need the risk register, we need the staff assignments, project staff assignment, what have been assigned to the project, because we asked for certain resources, what actually has been assigned would determine how our schedule model will take shape. And we also must know the resource breakdown structure, enterprise environmental vectors, and organizational process assets. So you see, this is the most populated input area in all of these processes, because everything is coming into it. Then as far as the tools and techniques are concerned, we have the schedule network analysis. We have the schedule network diagram prepared in sequencing. That sequence, uh, which we created as an example also, that sequence will now be populated with the durations, and now we will carry out the forward pass. We will determine the duration of the project for the very first time. Once we know the duration, we will carry out the backward pass, due to which we will understand and we would know how much is the float in various activities. We will determine those activities which do not have any float, and therefore they would be the critical activities, and the path joining all the critical activities is called the critical path, and that is essentially the longest path of all. As we saw in the previous example, there were five different paths, but the longest path was taken as the critical path, and that represented the whole duration of the project, which was calculated after the forward pass. 59 days was the result of our forward pass. So our critical path duration will be equal to 59 days, the longest path. There are other paths which are 23 days long, 28 days long, 36 days long, but they all are less than 59 days, and therefore the longest path is the path which will determine the total life of the project, the duration of the project. Because if all the activities on a shorter path have been completed, the project is not considered complete. It is not a race. Project will only be complete when all the work of the project, all the activities of the project have been performed. So once we have done that, we would know the critical path, and this is called critical path method. The second entry into the tools and techniques is critical path method. So critical path method is very interesting because then we know that these are the critical activities and we have to take special care about them because they do not have any allowance to get delayed. All other activities may have some floats. They may be delayed for 1 or 2 days or whatever is the float they have. But on critical paths, there is no float whatsoever. Therefore, these activities cannot be delayed because if they do, then the project will be delayed by that much time. Are you with me on that? Okay. Now, how many of you have heard about the critical chain method? What is our critical chain method?
Not sure about that, sir.
Not heard about it. Now, if you have not heard about it, then you must listen to me very carefully because this is something different. You might not ever have heard about it, and this is extremely important because this will change your life altogether. The whole conceptualization of project management completely changes. So behind this critical chain method, there is a philosophy, and that is called theory of constraints. Theory of constraints. Theory of constraints says, you might have heard a very famous saying or famous, quote. It says, a system is as strong as, or for that matter, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Have you heard it? A chain is as strong as its weakest link. What
Yes,
does
sir.
that mean?
Because that defines the strength.
Exactly. No matter if all the links of the chain are so strong that they can take a load of 1 ton, but only one link which is weak and cannot take more than 2 kgs of weight, that is where the chain will break if it is given more load than 1 ton, than 2 kg. As soon as you exceed 2 kg, the weakest link will break, no matter how strong the otherwise each of the other links are. So when we are trying to fix the problem, we must identify where really the problem exists. And we have to fix that. We don't have to fix something which is already very strong. Normally we understand this, but we are very poor at recognizing the problem area. We don't address the problem area. We keep addressing those things which do not matter, which are already very strong. You see, you are in your organization and there is something not, your production capacity is not up to the mark. We do not try to explore why it is not up to the mark. We start, putting several instructions out, like you see, anyone coming late will be punished and this will be done and that will be done. Everybody must go through a training and, things like that. And actually what you are doing is you are leaving it to your subordinates to fix the problem. You are not ready to fix the problem yourself. You are not even ready to identify the problem. And if you can be analytical enough, if you can go down and see what exactly is the weakest link, and you can fix that, then the problem will be resolved. And unnecessary expenses you are doing in the training of the people and in managing the other things like entry system and exit system and all that. So all that would not be wasted, and you would be able to fix the problem where it is. So I'll not talk more about that theory of constraint thing, but as far as the project management is concerned, this theory is applied to project management as a critical chain. What is the most sensitive item, most critical item in a project, where the chain of the project will break? Yes, please. We just talked about the critical path method. We just said that critical activities have no allowance. This is the breaking point. If a critical activity gets delayed, the whole project will be impacted. Therefore, this is the weakest area. Critical path is my weakest area. So, critical chain is that I identify my critical path, and now to take care of that, how to resolve the problem. If I know these are my critical path activities, and if they get delayed, the project will get delayed, how can I protect my critical path? Anyone?
I have a question.
Okay?
I have a question. Sir, we determine the critical path because that is the longest path, and we know that's the maximum would take, because the activities and the rest of the activities will be completed by
Rest of
that
the
time.
activities
Like,
are
I mean,
not in danger, so we do not want to fix them. We want to fix the critical path.
so the rest of the activities are important as well. So, I mean, they might be even further important than.
The critical does not mean important. Critical does not mean important. You see, why is it important? You say the Prime Minister of Pakistan will be sitting on this chair. So that chair becomes important. What do you say? You see, if it is critical that the road through which he will be coming should not be blocked, then that road is critical, not the chair is critical. We have 20 chairs lying there. If we can't sit on this chair, we can put another chair there. So I have got a lot of lungs. That is not a critical thing. The most important thing is the most critical thing. Important doesn't become critical. Critical becomes important. You see, if there is the longest path has an activity that a sweeper will clean the washrooms, and only then the next activity can be done, how unimportant this activity is, cleaning the washroom. But without cleaning the washroom, the next activity cannot be done, and this all is on critical path. If he does not wash the washroom, then ultimately the whole critical path will be disturbed and our project will be delayed. So no matter how inconsequential or how minor that job is, but if it is on the critical path, this is the most important job. There cannot be an more important job on another path than the critical path.
Yes, the others have workload time. So even if it gets delayed, they will be done by
Exactly.
the end of. Yeah. Okay, I got it.
That is the point. That is the point. It is not how how much you like it. It is because how much can it delay you. That is the matter of importance. If it can't delay you, if something you like very much, this is very, handled with care and all that, but it has got a lot of allowance, then this is not in danger. Why are you worried about it? The thing which is in danger, that is the critical path, and I have to save it with my life. Okay, how to save a critical path? Imagine you have a critical path to follow and you don't want anything to get delayed. How will you ensure that?
Sir, by completing them on time? Or
Okay, uncertainties happen. You tried your level best, still something happens, and that any one of the critical activities get delayed, the project will get delayed. You did not achieve your purpose. What else can you do? How can you protect it? The project is 59 days long. You don't want to delay it from 59 days. It must be completed in 59 days. How do you ensure that?
sir, try to squeeze the time, like
Squeezing the time, okay. How can you squeeze the time on critical path?
I mean, sir, because all the activities for, as we take the example, are finished to start.
Right.
Things.
If you increase the time, you will increase the risk. And if risk is increased on the critical path, that can be even more dangerous. I agree
I'm
with
not
your
sure.
thinking. You are right in trying to improve the situation, but that is more risky, and that is not going to solve my purpose. And even before we can move any further, let me give you one more rule of the game. That is, how do you know that activity, the durations you have calculated are right? How do you know that? Naturally, you worked with your team and your team contributed the durations to you. You did not have personal experience of each and every activity. Your team helped to create the durations. And that team included lot many, even the people who actually would be performing it, right? So the person who will have to be doing that job, he is the best judge. He would actually be giving you the right figure. He must have thought this job can be done in 2 days. But just because he wanted to keep some margin for himself, he told his supervisor that this job will be done in 3 days. You got me? Now the supervisor wanted to keep his own protection. He added 2 days of his own and he intimated his boss it will take 5 days. And then the same way the thing escalated, and when it reached project manager, it was 10 days. So actually a 2-day job has been inflated to 10 days and nobody noticed it. Everybody thought it fair, and they allocated 10 days to this activity. So the activity which could be done in 2 days is scheduled to be done in 10 days. Does this happen?
Yes, sir, it can happen. But for being at the safe side, if we give a little bit of, not that much, but a little bit of margin, is that
Okay.
okay or no?
Okay, that is it. So we are confusing reserve with padding. Little bit of margin without a reason is a padding. If you can provide a reason, then this is a reserve. Got my point? Reserve is allowed.
Okay, sir.
You could have built in some reserve, but we all know how much reserve has been kept in it. But we don't know how much padding you have put into it. And padding has no justification. You did not provide a justification, you just added your allowance into it. So normally the figure which reaches the project manager is inflated due to padding, and it is so much inflated that it will baffle you. 2 days activities in 10 days and nobody noticed it. Okay, that is one thing. Say the project manager agreed and he gave 10 days to that activity. Now, should the person who is going to perform that activity be very happy? Yes, please.
Excuse me, sir. Can you repeat?
I have given you 10 days to that activity. You know that that activity will only take 2 days. So how are you? Are you happy or sad?
I would definitely take some reserve, as you mentioned, but not that much.
I am saying you knew that this activity would actually take 2 days, but you inflated it and someone else inflated it, and ultimately project manager assigned you 10 days, right? You now know that this activity has 10 days to complete, whereas in heart of your hearts you believe that this is just a 2 days job. Are you happy about it?
Sir, again, it depends on the person. Like, if maybe a person can be happy about it, or if someone is doing job honestly, he might, try to do something about it.
Like what?
To like tell the manager that it's not going to take 10 days.
Who told the
I
manager?
don't know how,
Who told the manager that it will take 10 days? The same
because
channel.
as you said,
Your channel told him. So
yeah,
when you have padded for 1 day and your boss has padded and his boss has padded, then ultimately how can you say that sorry sir, this is too much time, please give me less time. You ask for it.
I'm not sure, sir.
Now you have been given this time, so naturally you will be happy that I have got more than required time, right? And you probably will do what with this time? Will you complete the job in first 2 days or not?
I don't know, sir. It depends. Maybe I will slack and keep things slowly, and maybe
Exactly. So you have no pressure to do it in first 2 days. Therefore, you will go lazy. You will be slow. You will expand the work in 10 days. The 2-day job will be expanded in 10 days. You will be so lazy that you will do the 2-day job in 10 days. You will plan for it. There is no hurry. You don't want to do it early. So this is called Parkinson law. Parkinson law says work expands to fill the time available. If you want, you can write it down somewhere. Work expands to fill the time available. So time available is 10 days. Work is 2 days. Work will inflate and expand into 10 days. And once you have made up your mind that you have to do it in 10 days, now if your boss asks you to do it in 8 days, what is your response? Yes, please. Now that you have made up your mind to do this job in 10 days, now your boss asks you to do it in 8 days. Are you okay with it?
Maybe I'll try to resist.
You will resist, definitely, because you have gone lethargic, you have expanded your work into the whole 10 days. So for all practical purposes, in 8 days you will only be able to complete 80% of the work. So you will fight it out. You say, no sir, this is not really fair and this and that. But this was a 2-day job which you are unable to complete in 8 days. And even in 10 days, it is really very difficult to complete it. Why? Because of another law, and that is called student syndrome. Student syndrome is that a student will only study on the last night of the exam, no matter how much time you give him, right? A student will only study on the last night of exam, no matter how much time you give him. So for you, I have given you 10 days to complete that job. But because you knew this is a easy job, this can be done, so you kept procrastinating, you kept delaying it towards the end. You did not work anything in the first many days, and as the last the ending time is closing, you started working. And maybe, on the very last night you started working on it, and that was not enough time to do the job. Even if you complete the job, that will be a fast job, and there must be some quality sacrifices. And that is very much possible that you will be unable to complete it at the end of 10 days. Do you agree with me?
Yes, it's quite possible.
So have you seen what happened? And a task of 2 days could not be done in 10 days. And that is what is the problem with the projects. So it is not the matter of keeping reserves or adding paddings. These pads are of no use, absolutely, because whatever time you get, you own it and you relax in that time, and you are unable to even deliver within that time. No matter how much time I give you to complete a job, this is difficult to complete in that job, always and every time. Okay, let me assume that you were very honest, very disciplined, and you did it in first 2 days. What will you do for the remaining 8 days?
Sir, but there should be a mechanism to change the schedule.
Right, the schedule should be changed, but what is your preference? I'm asking you from your point of view. You were given 10 days. You did it in 2 days. You have 8 days left. What is your priority? What will you do?
I don't know, sir. Maybe sit idle or hold the product till the 10th day or something.
Okay, right. So what we have done is, if you do it early, you do it for yourself, for your own relaxation, for your own enjoyment. You enjoy the remaining 8 days on your own without giving any benefit to the project. Those 8 days had not been transferred to the benefit of the project. Got my point? If you do any job earlier than the finish date, you will not tell anyone that I have done it, and you will enjoy for the rest of the time. But if you can't do it in the prescribed time, what will you do then? Then you will report, sir, this cannot be done. I need 2 more days. I need 1 more day. So when it is the matter of taking extra time, you are always ready. But when it is time to give back the remaining time to the project, you never volunteer for that. Therefore, for all practical purposes, 10 days if assigned to a job will be the minimum 10 days this task will be done, because nobody is going to give those any time out of those 10 days back to the project manager, and therefore that will never ever be used for the benefit of the project. But if at all you get delayed, always the project manager will be asked and the project will be impacted negatively. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I am coming to the solution. The solution is, number one fact is, I as a project manager know that whether it is allowed or not, everybody pads in their estimates. Everybody does padding in their estimates, right? Number two, whatever time is given to someone, it has never happened that they have given benefit back to the project. Number three, it is really very difficult to complete any activity in the time prescribed, and normally people ask for more time, thus impacting the project. So these are the three facts. Okay. Now, what is the protection project manager can build? Project manager has no allowance in the critical path. Critical path activity, if delayed, will delay the project. He does not have any float on the critical activities. If he tries to build a float or extra time, that will be beyond 59 days. Therefore, that will be more than critical path. So that is not possible. So whatever he has to do for his own protection and the protection of the project, he has to do within these 59 days.
So maybe he does some padding as well.
Training does not matter. This I am talking about the human nature. No matter how.
Padding, I mean, I
Yes,
said padding. Maybe project manager does it as well.
padding. Okay. Yes, of course. But you see, project manager, his interest should be with the project. It is not for his own job or something. It is with the project. Therefore, what I am saying, classically a project manager should try to do the project within the critical path, because this is his neck which is going to be, you know, ultimately cut. So what should he do? He knows that everyone has got margins, but he does not have any margin. So what he can do is, he can enforce a tax on every activity. Do you get my point? He can enforce a tax. He should say that every activity should give me back this much time. Say maybe, a flat rule, it says every activity must contribute 1 day to me. I will keep it in my buffer and I will use it at my own discretion. If everybody has given him 1 day, he will have, say, on critical path, there were 5 activities, so 5 days will he gain. That means the project of 59 days will have 5 days of buffer and 54 days for the activities to complete. And now the people doing those activities would know that they don't have 10 days but 9 days available to them for doing that activity. So they will adjust to that. Like in Parkinson law, work expands to fill the time available. So when I took out time from a project, from an activity, the work will contract to fill the time available. And that 1 day which has been taken away is not considered part of that activity anymore. And project manager has created it as his own buffer, and that buffer is the protection project manager has. So if these people on critical path cannot complete the work in 54 days, I still have 5 days in my buffer lying. I can give them some time back to complete their job. Still, I will be able to complete my work, my whole project in 59 days, thus meeting the critical path and thus protecting my project. What do you say? Is it any?
Yes, sir. It does make sense.
Right. So you see, we have created a mechanism by which we can protect our critical path. Now, we had many paths in our network diagram, but we are only concerned about the critical path. So all the critical activities, I asked them to contribute some time for the project buffer, and thus I have protected the critical path. What about the other paths? Other paths do have float. Some have 1 day float, some have 5 day float, some have 10 day float. So they are already protected. But the question is, how much are they protected? If the critical path has given 5 days to the buffer, actual work done would be in 54 days. If there is another path which is more than 54 days, that will then be dependent on the project buffer, because 5 days are lying in the project buffer. If let's say the second longest path was 57 days. I have reduced my critical path activities to 54 days, then that 57-day path will become critical. Therefore, that is going to now be dependent on the project buffer. Do you get my point?
Yes, sir, but we can ask those activities to contribute as well in the
Okay,
buffer, or no?
but they do not impact the project buffer. They have to contribute, of course, but not for the project buffer, but for their own personal protection. Every path must build their own personal protection, and that is called a feeding buffer. At the end of every path, there has to be built a personal protection of that path, which is called the feeding buffer. Feeding buffer will protect the project buffer from non-critical activities delaying the project. And feeding buffer will ensure that all non-critical activities on that specific path are done within the time available to them and does not impact the project buffer. So this is second kind of buffer. This is called the feeding buffer. Project buffer is only taken out of the critical activities, and it is only meant for the critical activities. It is not for any other activity. Project buffer will never give any time to any other activity, any non-critical activity. For non-critical activities, they need to create their own feeding buffer and keep their own protection there. These are two types of buffers I have told you in critical chain method. There is yet another kind of buffer which is called resource buffer. That is, when our resource is free from one activity and the next activity it has to get is starting a few days later, what do you think that resource is thinking? say A activity is finishing on day 3 and B and another activity R is starting on day 5. There is a 2-day margin available to the resource. How do you ensure that that resource reaches activity R in time? You know, he has got 2 days free, he will go on leave, he will come late, and ultimately my R activity will be impacted. Maybe R is a critical activity. If R activity gets impacted, the project will be delayed. How to protect R activity from this late coming of the resource? So I keep a resource buffer before that activity. If that resource has got 2 days, I ask that resource to be present for the work on our activity 1 day before the activity starts. So I have taken the time out of that resource time. 1 day I have confiscated from his time and I have kept it as a buffer. This is called the resource buffer. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Are you confused?
No, sir, it makes sense because just like the time, we have to, make sure about the sources as well.
Right. These are very critical concepts, very confusing concepts sometimes, because if you are listening to me carefully, you will be able to make head and tail out of it. But these are the 3 kinds of buffers you need to have. First is the project buffer for the protection of the critical path. Second is the resource buffer, feeding buffer for the protection of the respective feeding path, non-critical path. And third is the resource buffer for the protection from the resource coming late. Right. So this is the critical chain method. Next, we move on to the resource optimization techniques. How can you optimize the resources? Any ideas?
Sir, optimize by making them available and making sure that everything is in proper quantity.
Yeah. Okay, let me show you. Actually, I need something to draw on, and this is not a very good system here. I really face some difficulty in. Let me draw it. Bring up a blank screen. Just a minute. Let me fix that and maybe. It's very stupid. I can't draw anything. Right. Let's say when I when I translate my network diagram into a Gantt chart, my activities are like this is my A activity, this is my B activity, uh, this is my C activity, D activity, and this is E activity and F activity. For example, this is what it is. Okay. and I have durations for each. Maybe this is 6 days, this is 3 days, this is 7 days, this is 6 days, and this is 5 days, and this is 4 days, right? So you see, this is probably my critical path. This is my critical path. So my critical path is 6 plus 3, 9 plus 5, 14 plus 4, for 18 days is my critical path. These are the durations I have loaded on it. And these are the bars which come out of it. Now, I know the resources. Let's take an example that I have only one resource, and although there will be many resources on the project, but I assume there is only one resource, and that resource is X, resource X. I need 3 people here, 2 people here, 5 people here, 7 people here, 1 person here, and 3 people here. So if you can have these, how many days were they? 14 days. This was maybe this is 10 days. 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, 18 days, right? Say this is 10 days and this is 18 days. Can you see all this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Between 0 and 10, we have got 10 days, you see. This is 0.0, this is 0.5, this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now you can see how many people, now I know the people, I know the activities. How many people do I need on the first day of the project? First of all, see which activities are actually happening on first day. This is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, this is E, and this is F. So on day 1, what activities are happening? On day 1, this is day 1.
A and C.
A and C. How many people do you require for A and how many for C?
3 and 2.
3 and 2. Very good. So these are the 5 people I require. Just a minute. I require 5 people on day 1. Second day, same situation, the same situation till 6 days. So I will require 5 people, 4th day, 5th day, and 6th day. What happens on 7th day? C activity is, till 6th day, yes. What happens on 7th day? 7th day, C activity is still going on, but B activity has started and A has finished. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
So now this is the 7th day. 7th day we have got B and C. That means for one day we will require 7 people. 5 plus 2, 7. But then the C activity will finish and D activity will start, and for next 2 days we will have only B and D happening. 5 plus 7, 12 people for 2 days. Then B activity will finish and we will be having D and E happening till 14th day. And D and E would require 7 plus 1, 8 people. 8 people. Till this point. For last 3 days, only activity F is happening, which requires 3 people. So what is the requirement here? For first 6 days, 5 people. Then for 1 day, 7 people. Then for 2 days, 12 people. Then for 6 days, 8 people. And then for 3 days, 3 people. Probably 3 days. No, this is for 7 days, 8 people. Right. So if I somehow can draw a histogram over it, let me redraw this thing. Okay. So I have got for first 6 days, the maximum requirement I have is of 12 people. So 5 people, 10 people, so probably this is 12, right? So this is the maximum requirement I can have. For 6 days I need 5 people. So for first six days, this is how many people I require. For 1 day I require 7 people. For 2 days I require 12 people. Then for next 7 days I require 8 people. And last 3 days I require 3 people. So this is 3, this is 8, this is 12, this is 7, and this is 6. Now when you calculated all this, you never knew how the commitment of resources will come up with. You just were establishing the sequence, and you were designing the network diagram. You did not know what actually will transpire. And now you understand that the resource requirement would be very wild. Sometimes it is very high, sometimes it is very low. So you know that you have got 12 people to be used at maximum. What if I asked you to hire 12 people right from the beginning of the project and keep paying them for 18 days? The area which is not darkened is the area which they will be not used, and they will just be eating up your money without doing anything. This is almost more than 50% of the time they will be paid and for doing nothing. Do you agree with me? So this is not optimized. This is not optimized. So we need to optimize it. So what can we do about it? Somehow, if I can adjust it in a way that I hire a static number of say 8 people, let me draw it from another line. Say I draw a line on 8 people. So if that be the case, and I can hire only 8 people constantly for the whole project, and somehow I arrange it in a way that I will never use 12 people. Even if those activities which require to be done simultaneously using 12 people, I somehow effect them to enlarge their duration, thus affecting even the critical path. But by doing this, I am optimizing my resources. All the resources working on the project will actually be working for what we pay. This is the optimized mechanism of ensuring that everybody is working on the activities we have designed. Are you with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now what happens, I know time is over, but let me finish this. This is just few small little discussion. Otherwise it will seep up to the next class and we will not be able to cover it all. Right. So this is a resource optimization technique, and this is called resource smoothing. I am smoothing out the resources, and I said while I do that, that may impact my total duration of the project. My critical path may increase, but at what cost? At cost of optimization. So I am saving money and I am increasing time, but I am optimizing this way. Another thing is, another method of optimization is resource leveling. That is, when we assign a particular resource to an activity, we do not consider on which other activity this resource will be required. Maybe I require a carpenter and I have only one carpenter, and I assign him on every activity where a carpenter is required, without considering that many of those activities might be working in parallel. If that be the case, how can a carpenter be working on two activities at a time? He cannot. If he is dedicatedly working on one activity, he can't be working on another activity at the same time. So, if this is the only resource I have, then probably only one activity will be done and the other will be delayed. As soon as he gets free from the first activity, only then he will be available on the next activity. If we adjust our chart, our bar chart or our Gantt chart accordingly, that it is according to the existing resources, it is called resource leveling. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So I have shown you two methods, resource leveling and resource optimization. And then are the modeling techniques. There could be many risks as in the risk register, and there, we have got a lot many possibilities what can happen to our schedule. Although we designed our schedule according to one ideal situation, but what if an activity delays, and how much are the chances that the things will go topsy-turvy? So to do that, we use modeling techniques like sensitivity analysis and Monte Carlo analysis, which are computer generated modeling techniques which tell us what all are the possibilities our project can go wrong. And based on that, we amend our schedule. Then we use the leads and lags as we used in the planning when we were developing the schedule. Schedule compression techniques like compression and fast tracking can be used. Other scheduling tools can be used, and we will come up with the outputs. These are the schedule baseline, project schedule, and schedule data. And thus, at this time, our complete project calendar is made available. Resultantly, the project man plan and project updates may be updated. So these are just the explanations of the thing. This is the critical path defined, and I have taught you in more detail what the critical path is. This is critical chain. This just shows you the project buffer and feeding buffer. I hope if you have followed what I have said, then you will be able to, see that where and how these buffers are to be created and inserted. Project buffer this is the critical path C, D, E, F. So the project buffer is at the end of the critical path. And the feeding buffer, the other paths, wherever they join the critical path, at that point, they will have a feeding buffer just before that. So there is a feeding buffer for non-critical activities, the top path and the lower path, which is also having its own feeding buffer. And similarly, there could be a resource buffer shown here as well. These are the resource optimization techniques. The top is the example of activities before resource leveling. When we have not leveled the resources, activity A and B were using the same resource. But because the same resource could not be made available on the both activities at the same time, therefore B activity has been delayed, and only after the A has finished, the B would get that resource and it will be done, thus increasing the total duration of the project. In resource smoothing, I have already told you. Then modeling techniques we have talked about. You can read through them. Crashing and fast checking, the compression techniques, and ultimately we have got these outputs. Okay, last but not the least is the control schedule. And in control schedule, we are just doing as we did in the control of the scope. The work performance data comes to the schedule, control schedule. It is in monitoring and control. Control schedule checks it against the schedule baseline, and if there is any variation, it calculates the variance, establishes a trend, does the analysis, makes some projections, and ultimately forecasts how much the project will be delayed. Or as a result of this analysis, a change request could be moved to integrated change control, and the result of the analysis is the work performance information, which is sent to monitor and control project work, which will integrate it into the work performance report. So it is behaving exactly in the way the control scope has worked, control monitoring and control has done it in monitor and control project work, and the control cost will also be behaving exactly similarly. So this is the process of monitoring the status of the project activities to update project progress and manage changes. Key benefit is a means to recognize any deviations or variance and apply any corrective or preventive actions. In control schedule, we have the project management plan, project schedule, which the baseline we have, work performance data coming from execution, project calendar is available, schedule data is available in organization process assets. We will do the performance review. So during this performance review, the work performance data we received from execution is translated into work performance information. And as a result of that analysis, we have also created some schedule forecasts. Both of these items, work performance information and schedule forecast, they both are sent to monitor and control project work. And if there is any change request as a result of that, the change request is sent to integrated change control. Then we apply the same resource optimization techniques. Because we are doing replanning here, we are correcting the schedule. So if there is a change, we will apply the resource optimization techniques, the modeling techniques, leads and lags, schedule compression, schedule tool, all those techniques we have studied in developed schedule will be used here to replan and ultimately update the project management plan, project documents, and organizational process assets. So this is all about control, and in control there is nothing new. We are just repeating the same things. Only the new thing is the analysis. So from performance reviews, we will establish the trend. We will have the critical path analysis done again. Critical chain method will apply, earned value will apply, and project management software will be used. As far as the earned value method is used, the variances are used. I will talk about them in the chapter of cost, because that is done for schedule and cost together. Therefore, I have put the earned value method solely in the cost chapter. So as far as the control schedule is concerned, just remember that we have to do some trend analysis. I will tell you how in the cost chapter. But as far as the schedule is concerned, we are done with it. Any questions?
It's all good, sir.
Okay, so this is fine. Okay, if that be the case, we should call it a day, and we will meet tomorrow. And please consider that if we can meet um, even after tomorrow and till 28th, whenever we can meet daily if possible. If everybody can't attend, then probably we can keep recording the things for you. But anyways, the
Yes, sir,
next
I
course,
can do it.
yeah. So we will conduct the course tomorrow and daily from now on till 28th. If you can attend, good and fine, but otherwise you can listen to the recording, or you can also join in the next course starting in 29th May, right? But the timing of that is, your time would be probably Saudi Arabia 9 to 11, Pakistan time is 11 to 1, midnight. So that's it. Let's hope we be able to finish everything, because the major chapters are these: scope, time and cost. After that we can move with a lot of speed. Anyways, you take care. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Good night.